Hello, my name is Derek Clark. We're going to go over a presentation about interpersonal communication for Liberty University's Human Services Counseling 508. Next slide. The overarching goal for this presentation will be to demonstrate what I learned during this course about communication and interpersonal relationships and how to get better at those given how I already communicate. To communicate in a non-judgmental and attentive manner that encourages others to feel safe while in either the listener or speaker role. As a listener, I will strive to maintain an open mind while others speak, and remember that I cannot tell others how or what they feel or why they feel the way they do. I'll also continue to use insightfulness as a tool when interpreting others' words and actions. According to the Queendom survey that I took, I scored fairly high on insightfulness, meaning I'm moderately good at interpreting people's body action or body language, words, to find out how they're feeling at that time. As a speaker, I will maintain clear, concise communication in order to convey thoughts and feelings to the listener that will not create confusion. Meaning, I want to be able to express myself more precisely. And that all this will be done with a positive attitude that will be able to demonstrate God's love and care for others. Next slide. Enlarging the conversation can sometimes seem, I guess, too simple. When you think enlarging the conversation, first thing that comes to my mind when I found out about this was making it longer. Well, you don't necessarily want just a longer conversation. You want a more in-depth conversation that has value added to it. And you can get this through self-disclosure. When you self-disclose at the appropriate times and with the appropriate information, you begin to relate with the other person and they relate to you. That helps add value and depth to a conversation. Next slide. Some bits of information about me and my background that will help understand my current communication style. 32-year-old Caucasian male. Being a little bit older than a teenager gives me the advantage of I've been around a while longer and put in situations that require different styles of communication and been, I guess, forced to communicate in certain ways because of those. Also, the Caucasian male piece is important because each cultural group or ethnic group communicates in a different way, and it's influenced by different things. Everybody's influenced by different things anyways. We all grow up differently. I was born in Michigan and currently live in Kentucky. That's important because in the northern part of the country, communication is a little bit more cold, I guess. You don't talk to strangers while you're waiting in line at the grocery store. You stare at your phone so you don't have to talk to other people around you. Down here in the South, oftentimes you look for a reason to talk to the person next to you when you're in line. Everybody's just more friendly. I served for 7 years in the United States Army as a combat medic, a couple deployments. I worked with the infantry and with the hospital. So being in the Army itself has a whole different communication style, and I don't think that anybody can join the military and not come out affected by that communication style. It's very precise and to the point. When you communicate, whether in writing or in person in the military, it's to the point, quick. You say what you mean and you mean what you say, and no fluff added. Same thing in the Army writing style. Also, as a medic, I learned, medical terminology, but more important than that, it added to the preciseness of communication within the military. So you combine those two, I got a very good experience at communicating in a technical way as well as being precise and quick and meaning what I say. Next, I am married. I have 2 children, a boy that's 8 and a little baby girl who's 4 months old. Being married is a whole different level of communication. I'm pretty sure for everybody. You think you know a lot, then you get married and you know that you don't know how to communicate well. So then it's about starting over again. So that influences my communication style. Having a little boy is different than the girl because with a boy I can relate to him. I can do boy stuff with him, things that I did when I was a child. So better relating. little girl I don't relate well to at all. However, she has influenced my communication style in a way that I never thought would be possible. She has me smiling and cooing and singing crazy songs because I love her so much. So the love that I have for a baby girl has created a different type of communication within me. And finally, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, specifically personality theory. Having a degree in psychology has helped understand that everybody has a different background. Everybody is uniquely different. Everybody's an individual. Stereotyping doesn't work in that place. More importantly, though, just getting a higher education has helped with communication. You learn to express yourself in writing much better than just going through high school or, I guess, technical training. Although those very great, but getting a higher education is definitely beneficial for communication. Next. So the behavioral blend DISC model is what we started the class out with. You'll see the DISC, and I'll explain in the next slide what my results were, but D, active task-oriented, I, active people-oriented, S, passive people-oriented, and C, passive task-oriented. So under the what is expected of me results, I scored just a D, and then this is me, a DC. So you'll see that you don't have to be a combination of 2, you don't have to be a combination of 4, you can be 1, or you can be a combination. And that's from Carbonell, Uniquely You Profile. Next. Here you'll see my personal DISC blend. You'll notice 2 columns, things that I tend to be more of and things that I tend to have less of. A lot of the stuff I was not very surprised by, but it's definitely convicting at least to see it in front of me as a test result. You'll see demanding, firm, loyal, conservative, serious, forceful, compliant under the what I am more of. I am, very true. Hear that from a lot of people. I pretty much always have. But also on the other side, the things that I'm less of: playful, fun-loving, delightful, pleasant, obedient, contented, entertaining, joyful, talkative, animated. I'm none of those, or at least very little of any of those. And again, that wasn't a surprise either. And for instance, my wife is telling me all the time, I need to lighten up. So right there it is in front of me, areas that I need to improve on, or at least incorporate into my communication style or my personality in general. Next. We all have barriers to communication. Barrier number 1 for me, stereotyping and totalizing others. Like I talked about a few minutes ago, stereotyping happens. However, to resolve that, I'll have to remember that everybody's been influenced by something different, so nobody's the same. You could stereotype cultural background maybe, so I could say Catholics all believe this, so I better approach it with a specific sensitivity, or any other groups. Need to avoid stereotyping. Next. Barrier number 2, hearing what you want to hear. Another case of communication with my wife. For instance, she'd tell me I need to pick up 2 packs of wipes for the baby. And I bring home 1 because all I heard was pack of wipes. I didn't hear 2. Well, that's a problem in many other areas of life, and to resolve that, I'm going to take Burley Allen's advice and try to focus on key pieces of information from the speaker. For instance, the next time my wife calls and says, I need you to pick up this amount of this, I'm going to try and repeat that back and say, did I hear you correctly, or is that right, or was that what you wanted? Before I go all the way to the store, pick it up, bring it home, and find out that I need to run back in. Next. Barrier number 3, mouth working overtime. At first glance, that might come across as talking quickly, talking too much. I suppose it could be a little bit of both, but specifically in this one, Peterson was talking about using your mouth in an aggressive way. Whereas oftentimes we say things that we mean at the time but don't mean really, when we just say it because we're angry or frustrated. So to try and fix that, I'm going to keep in mind that everybody gets frustrated or angry sometimes when I'm on the receiving end of that. And rather than giving it out, I'm going to have to take into consideration that sometimes it's better not say anything at all. Next. Internal noise pollution are things that happen within yourself that are controllable that hinder communication. So, for instance, hearing what you want to hear, emotions, physical barriers are all example of internal noise pollution. Those can be, you're angry, so you're not listening well to whoever you're angry at. Physical barriers, I suppose you could be crying and you can't hear well, and you can control that. Or maybe there's a door in between you or someone. That's a physical barrier, right? So you'd open the door and then ask them to repeat themselves. Some potential ways to minimize the effects of the internal noise pollution, according to Peterson, include understand your personal biases. That way you're not stereotyping or holding anything against anybody. Recognize your emotional tendencies and focus on the main topics of conversation. And most importantly of all, listen at the highest level. Next. External noise pollution. Behaviors are things that you may not have control over. Outside noises like loud crashes, traffic, weather, the temperature you can't control of, that could affect communication. If you're super hot, you're going to be dying, you're going to be fanning yourself, not trying to talk. If you're super cold, you might be talking too much with your mouth chattering. The deadlines also that cause outside sources of pressure, that is something that you could control with good planning, but sometimes that isn't good enough. Sometimes things just get thrown on you last second and you have to go with it. Fidgeting, or the speaker's too loud or not loud enough. You can control your own fidgeting unless you have some sort of disorder, but the speaker, you can ask them to speak up if they're not loud enough, and vice versa if they're too loud. My action plan to get better at communication, specifically listening, is to recognize when I'm not listening to speakers with the appropriate amount of attention. So if I catch myself drifting off, I'm going to be able to realize that and pull myself back in and provide the attention that that person deserves. Also, I'll apply strategies and techniques learned in this class. For instance, minimizing the internal-external noise. I could control a lot of that, and I need to start making that a priority within communication for myself. And recognizing personal biases and stereotyping. I spoke a lot about stereotyping because I think that that's my biggest barrier to communication. Ensure that both speaker and listener roles are taken seriously and re-evaluate often. I want to not only listen better but speak better too, so I'm not going to focus 100% of my attention on one side rather than the other. And then continual re-evaluation is important no matter what you're doing. It helps you pick up things that you may have not noticed at first, and it helps you improve processes. Next, my references, and that is it. Thank you for your time and your attention.